Afternoon or good evening, depending on from where you're watching this, and welcome back to the IMPAKT TV channel. Love is the Master Plan seems like an amazing starting point for the rest of this journey of the festival and perhaps all of our personal lives, hopefully. I am here joined in the studio, two of Het Huis in Utrecht by Anne Kervers, which is really amazing. You're one of the few physical guests here today. The next part of the festival is, the next element is that we are going to have a short conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Yeah, is that better? So the next segment is that we are going to discuss your work, not just your background as an activist, but also your work in researching money, and I will briefly introduce you to our viewers. But before I do this, I would like to ask everyone watching this from their screens to refresh your browsers every now and again. There might be some technical difficulties, so we're probably either frozen or disconnected if you don't. And next to that, I really hope that everyone is considering to buy a ticket. €5 gives you all access for the rest of the festival. So if you haven't already done so and you're watching this through our social media channels, there's a good chance that you're not unlocking the full potential of your IMPAKT Festival experience. So without further ado, welcome Anne Kervers. You are the founder and main person behind Humans, principles that determine how money is made affect how money is distributed in society. This matters for the ongoing climate and ecological emergency because how we currently make money complicates acting on the climate crisis. Unmuting money researches how the monetary systems can be changed. And if you haven't been watching the news, for everybody at home, you are also part of Extinction Rebellion. I hope that lands with most of our viewers, but Extinction Rebellion NL is an activist movement based after the British movement Extinction Rebellion UK, and their goal is to create awareness for the climate crisis through peaceful, creative and disruptive actions. They exist in 72 countries at the moment, and Anne is one of the rebels of Extinction Rebellion NL. She's also a PhD student at the University of Amsterdam doing research on new normative framework for financial debt. You worked at Triodos Bank and you have completed studies in cultural analysis, economics, ethics and sustainability studies. So that's a lot of reading from me, but it gives a little bit of a background for everybody watching. Welcome to the studio. Can you tell us a little bit about this amazing title, Unmuting Money?
So I was having a conversation with a friend who works on noise theory. And you have this famous author, McLuhan, who writes, the medium is the message. So if you know, the medium that you use to convey your message affects how the message comes across. And the same counts for, and I knew this, this work, but I never connected it to money. And this work affects how money is being used. So, and with unmuting money, I'm trying, or I aim to make money's, or like the design of money's voice heard again. So for instance, today, our money is created by commercial banks based on profitability, and this affects how money can be used. And I think that this is a fact that we do not discuss often. That is not part of sustainability transitions, and it should be. So unmuting money is about making sure that the effect that our money's design has on sustainability transitions, make that explicit and clear so we can change it.
I might be the only one not fully understanding how money is produced nowadays, but perhaps you can walk us through it a little bit, because I feel that there's this great technological side that we can hardly grasp. I remember that my mom told me as a kid that I used to say, like, why don't we get more money from the wall in the street, you know? And that is maybe the first concrete appearance of money where it, you know, translates from this virtual situation. There is the promise of this being in your account, and then you can, you know, liquidify it.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through it a little bit? Because I am often just a little bit perplexed by the world of finance and mostly virtual worth. Can you enlighten a little bit how, because that would be maybe the premise to understand.
I completed a bachelor in economics, and
Triodos Bank is actually quite a different type of bank than most others.
This is exactly how it happened, because to a colleague of mine I said, no, but we don't create money, right? Like Triodos Bank doesn't create money. And he was like, yes, we do. And he said, where do you think money comes from? And then I realized I never thought about it. I was like, well, it's just there.
Yeah.
And then I learned that commercial banks, they create money when they make a loan. And so it's not as if savings are converted to loans. That is what we often think, how it works. And it is, so it is as simple as that. When a commercial bank like Triodos or any other, ING, Rabo, doesn't matter, it all works the same. When they make a loan, they just add the same number on both sides of their balance, and this is how they create money. Yeah, and
so this is when a certain new amount enters the system of the economy.
Yeah.
And based on this virtual money, its presence or its absence, somehow new information is added. But can you walk us through how that relates to, let's say, international finance? Or is that is that not really relevant for the way that you are?
No,
I mean, maybe my question should be more like, is this the moment that I would go to Triodos Bank? I am with Triodos Bank.
Yeah, good.
I would like to, it's I think it's the only Dutch bank that is connected to the International Alliance for Ethical Banking. So if anybody at home is wondering, what on earth can I do to contribute to a fairer world? When you enter an amount of your loan, it also, if I'm understanding correctly, immediately affects the international market. Is that correct?
I mean, there is then more money in circulation, but I think the international world of finance is, it is difficult to describe that relation, but there's a lot of, how do you say it? Like you can, I think the loans that are made in by a bank, for instance, can become collateral in other financial exchanges. So this is one way they are connected. So for instance, with the mortgages in the States, then, you know, they became part of a whole financial chain, and then eventually this is how, you know, things went wrong. So that is one way to describe that connection, yeah.
And now, maybe it's interesting to tell us a little bit more about this project that you're doing, where you're researching how to make those things more explicit and, well, reveal the inner workings of that system.
One way to do it is to include ecological considerations or other ethical considerations in the process of making money. And this can be done in various ways. So for instance, what the difference is between Triodos and ASN compared to ING, Rabo and ABN AMRO is ecological considerations when they're making a loan. So this means that they will not extend money to fossil fuel companies. And this is very important because, for instance, since the Paris Agreement, there has been 2.7 trillion, I think, dollars has been provided to fossil fuel companies. So this says a lot about if you constrain that, that would make the world a better place, like
It literally pays
less
off immediately.
yeah, polluted, yeah. And
It's
I mean,
staggering.
it is as easy as saying we don't do that anymore, but of course there are many consequences for financial stability, for all sorts of economic variables that you need to take into account. So it's not like, let's go. You need to be careful, but I think right now we're prioritizing too much the financial concerns over the ecological concerns, yeah.
Which immediately ties in with your work for Extinction Rebellion. Can you tell a little bit about what your work there looks like?
It mainly means blocking roads, putting posters on walls, and then also a lot of organizing. Like, we just had the September Rebellion, and then there is a lot to be done to get there. So.
I think what I like a lot about following Extinction Rebellion and understanding, or seeing it unfold actually, because it's very manifestful and almost spectacular, you could say. What is it? Cluttering the spaces where people are normally perhaps more inclined not to see damage. Everything looks so polished in our streets and in our finances or in our world of institutions. And I think that making visible where people literally cross roads and how they interact in that traffic is very interesting and also very urgent to make those things visible. I imagine that a lot of people may be familiar or unfamiliar with your cause and work, might feel inclined to want to connect and want to support, but maybe they feel overwhelmed or a little bit insecure of how to join it. Maybe afraid of gluing themselves to a street or getting arrested. What would you say to people who are actually supportive of your message but not sure how to support the actual goal of Extinction Rebellion?
I think there are three things to say. First of all, you don't need to have experience as an activist. I never considered myself an activist, and I remember being in the blockade in October and standing there and thinking, I'd never expected to be part of a thing like this. I studied economics because I believed so much in change from within. So that is one thing, like you don't need to be anything to be able to join. Everyone is welcome. And then the second thing is, people often sort of have this idea that they need to be perfect before they can join, but we're all hypocrites. We're all taking part in the destruction of the next generation. So if we're going to judge ourselves, nothing's going to happen. So I think that is very important. You don't need to be perfect to be able to become. First time you do a thing, it's really scary. So my first time blocking a road, I was so tired afterwards because, the police comes and they had their horses and then we're going to arrest you, and then it took another hour, and my adrenaline was going up and down, up and down, up and down.
Was this at the Rijksmuseum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then last time at the Zuidas, I was just sitting, and I think, no, I didn't bring a book, but another friend was reading a book and the sun was shining, and I was in the last group to be taken away, and I was just sitting in the sun and enjoying the sun, and I was sort of annoyed because I actually wanted to be working. And this is maybe also good to add that people tell me it's annoying we block roads, and I'm like, yeah, how annoying it is for me to have to block a road to have a future, right?
Because you're not blocking any trains or bicycle pathways, you're literally blocking the roads that are used by cars.
I mean, we've been marching.
That is a conscious decision.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think, we would not block a bicycle path, but I think, no, we wouldn't do that. No, and we're very.
Let's say people who try to choose maybe the more environmentally.
We would not
trains,
block public transport either. No. So in that sense, it is a very deliberate choice. And
Do you feel that maybe the anxiety or the fear of being arrested, do you think that types of privilege come into play when we think about activism? We often see a group of people who are mostly white or mostly represented already in the media landscape, for instance, or in academics. How do you relate to, I mean, obviously as you're dealing in your academic work and as an activist, I think we're all convinced about the power that those intersections are more holistic and that they are, that capitalist exploitation hits oppressed and marginalized groups hardest. How do you relate to the, well, let's say, the questions of feeling maybe more vulnerable for arrest in the stance of activism? Yeah,
that is super important and something that we didn't took into concern enough when we first started, and something that really it played out in a different way, or no, more that there is an ongoing conversation about this in the movement, and we are searching for ways. So, for instance, right now, so you have Fashion Action, which is another branch of XRNL, or a community of XRNL, and they are now putting attention on the, I don't know how to pronounce this in English, but Uyghurs? Uyghur Chinese people, yes. And they've been so successful, like it's much more in the news. So I'm really happy to see that it's working out. But because so this is an oppressed group of marginalized, mostly Muslim, it's basically an ethnic Muslim minority in China who are often forced into labor in how reproduction taken away. Exactly, the fashion industry has mostly benefited from their labor in concentration camp-like situations. So this is one way we use our voice, for our privileged voices, for other people, and I think we are also in touch with, for instance, Kick Out Zwarte Piet, how we can support them. And but decolonializing our movement is maybe the most pressing question for us. Which ties in with all the other complexities, perhaps, of power imbalances that we see today, and probably part of why you get up and do those same types of actions in the morning. I do. Every working day, I start with my anger, fear, sadness. They just consume me, and I'm a mess. And if I succeed at channeling these emotions, then, it becomes a force. But I think I cry every day right now for living in two worlds at the same time, right? Our world here is going on. It's 16 degrees outside today, and it's not in the news. And today it's 16 degrees, but in 20, 40 years, it's food shortage in Europe and no food in the tropics and subtropics. And it's the same with, there was this news on the Amazon becoming a savanna maybe in 10 to 20 years. And it is nowhere. How do you channel these things? Because I think, well, I'm just guessing from my own position here, but I'm just guessing that a lot of people watching this now might feel connected to these issues, or interested, to say the least. I personally recognize a lot of what you say about the anger, and how do you, can you give us some tips? Because I think we can all use a little bit of healing power and tips. How do you channel sit down, and then I try to feel myself sitting on my chair, connecting my feet to the floor, closing my eyes, and literally just thinking about all the things that are happening, all the deaths that I saw on the news, and really, and then realizing that I have these two things that I'm working on. On the one hand, it's activism. So things that are on the very short term effective. And then on the other hand, my PhD, with which I try to change the monetary system for sustainability reasons. And
that is a lot already.
yeah, and then it is, for XR I never have motivational problems, but for my PhD I do, because and this is what the like meditating really helps for, because it's on a longer term. Like I finish in 3.5 years, and sometimes I wonder, what is the use, you know, will there be use? And then when I connect with these emotions, and I also repeat for myself how my work can contribute to making, like how my theoretical work can contribute. And then when I have that, I can start reading and writing again, yeah.
That is really powerful, and I hope that resonates to others as it does with me. I was also actually looking to ask you, not just about the spiritual and personal and emotional healing because of all the labor that you do, but perhaps also more about the creative or artistic or playful components that we all need to take a break from the rational and scientific analysis that we try to make sense of the world with. Do you read? Do you watch films? What do you do in kind of to nourish yourself creatively? Or maybe, you know, in terms of inspiration, or do you have any heroes that...
Well, for me, Anat Singh is a hero in the sense that reading her work really nourishes me and really helps me to understand the world as it is and what annoys me so much, and how, you know, what are strategic points to improve that. But and other than that, I live in a very small house at the moment, but I'm going to move to a bigger house out of the city, and then I am planning to do a lot more creative stuff with my hands, and really looking forward to that. But so right now it's more like taking walks to nourish myself, and I guess I think, like, this is also a challenge for me, how to find this balance between nourishing myself, because right now nourishing means watching XR videos on YouTube, but it's not necessarily only nourishing in relaxing, right?
No, exactly.
But then relaxing is also a bit overrated.
Well, I was thinking about the same questions a lot, and I came across an author years ago called Amitav Ghosh, who inspired, actually, a talk also inspired 25, everybody who's watching. This is free of charge, you can just enroll online, and it's about, it's University of Amsterdam, extension, so to say, and they have an online program about climate fiction next Thursday on the 5th of November, so be sure to look that up, everybody who's interested. I'm interested in that term climate fiction mostly because I got into that, that same type of moment of despair, like maybe imagination, and just as a fuel and more oxygen for your brain, basically. And Amitav Ghosh is an Indian author who has spoken extensively about the need for us to not just place climate change in the faraway future, like is often done in sci-fi scenarios. You know, we all know the barren landscapes in Terminator or whatever, which often places human action or inaction so far of the scenario that our own accountability is completely off of film, basically. So he started saying, you know, we should place fiction and talking about and imagining this, what is going on right now, way more in the present. And he wrote a beautiful book called Gun Island, where, well, it taught me a lot about how climate displacement and refugees are actually in the millions are already taking place, not only in India, but also in Bangladesh and the Sundarbans. And this is a beautiful reading tip. Just one that I might have to offer, but it's those types of moments that you hope maybe it brings it closer to home without just deflecting everything onto.
No, sounds great.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of something important, that the climate crisis is not an apocalypse. You know, not something that there won't be this one crisis moment like in an American movie where there comes a flood and then bomb, you know?
Precisely.
Yeah, people are being displaced today.
Yeah.
And dying today.
Yeah, and we're connected to those people, whether we like it or not. It's not that we have the liberties right now and the supplies to not feel entangled with, to the anger and frustration and to the need subsequently to recharge.
No, that's true. I was meaning to say holiday is overrated, but relaxing is very important.
Okay, yes, well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I just briefly need to check to our queue. We have a few more minutes. Until I see, we have a few more minutes before the next program segment starts, which will be a video of Pinar Yildiz. Speaking about relaxation, it will be about yoga.
Okay.
Global warming, hot yoga, so talking about activism and relaxing at the same time. Do you want to highlight somebody who you feel doesn't get enough, maybe credit, airtime, maybe not so much a person, but is there something you would like to highlight for people who are watching this and...
I mean, I'm not sure whether it's so interesting for other people, but from my profession, there is this report, The Green Swan, written by a very influential bank. It's not a central, it is like the central bank of central banks, so it's a bit behind the scenes. But they wrote a beautiful report where they problematize the economic theory that dictates the central banking policy today. And for me, it was so meaningful, and I'm not so hopeful for institutions, but to read this, that was really hopeful.
And this is called the Green Report? The Green Report?
More about the role of the monetary system in climate science, in climate change. That is a good one. Yeah.
Okay, that is actually an excellent tip, and I didn't know it. So at least you've reached one person.
Yeah,
I will check it out now. Thank you so much for coming, Anne Kervers. It was really lovely talking to you. I personally will definitely continue to check out your work on muting money. I want to move to the next program. Pinar Yildiz is one of the performers at the festival with Global Warming Hot Yoga Studio. In the performance, the yogini will take you into a relaxing journey into the molecular dimensions of the Anthropocene as you sweat through different asanas. Inhale and bring your attention to all the particulate matter landing on your alveoles. Exhale and let go of your cognitive dissonance. The practice takes place in front of more than 200 heat lamps. I'm guessing that they might be LED, that convey the letters global warming. This video is just a short preview of the performance, and I hope you enjoy it and see you after. Thank you again, Anne Kervers.
Welcome to the Global Warming Hot Yoga Studio. This is a collective sweat experience. I know that global warming can be really, really stressful. Stress is very bad for you, but yoga calms nerves. Yoga is extraordinarily good for you. We shall start with a deep breath. we shall bring our attention to our highly individualized experience. This is an ever-accelerating world. Can you forget? Can you bring your energies back to yourself? Just you. Only you. You are the most important. You are the anthropos, the creator, the builder, the destroyer. Now let us start with a breathing exercise. Inhale the particulate matter. Exhale your cognitive dissonance. Can you feel the smell? Can you feel the smog gently land on your alveoli? Can you feel the volatile organic compounds? Inhale VOCs. Inhale lung cancer. Inhale air pollution. Exhale separation angst. Inhale persistent organic pollutants. Exhale excessive capitalism. Bring your attention to your breath. Hold the air in, push the air out. Inhale the freshly released carbon dioxide. It is 417.16 parts per million as of year 2020. It is simply crazy.
Tree in the vast forest of humanity. Send your roots deep down to reach ground. Find the groundwater polluted by biocides, heavy metals, nitrates, lead.
Soak it up all the way to your leaves. Feel the excess UV rays pass through your epithelium. Feel the lack of ozone layer. Feel the forest dissolve into dust. Feel the forest turn into ash. Do not let global warming distract you from being your best self. Do not let global warming stop you from reaching your potential. Keep breathing. Continue your breath. Inhale industrial pollution. Exhale corporate oblivion. Inhale government corruption. Exhale acidification. Release the tree pose. Give yourself a moment to embrace desertification.
You are an eagle. Twist as much as you can to fit your brand new habitat. In this eagle pose, capture the bird's eye view of destruction. Stretch like its sixth extinction. You are a homeless eagle, forced to eat plastics, covered in industrial filth. You are an eagle whose noble wings are unfulfilled.
Welcome back, everyone. After this amazing short preview by Pinar Yoldas, and be sure to keep an eye out for the Hot Yoga Global Warming Studio. I think a great project, and we were already talking about healing and finding space to recharge. So giving a way for the next program element, where we were just talking about, and this is the reason that Anna actually remains in her seat for a little bit longer, because we got it started about greenwashing, and IMPAKT has created a short greenwashing wall of shame page on the website. Please visit it, and maybe you can still contribute with your additions. And we were going over some of these examples. If the term greenwashing is new to you, in very short, in a nutshell, it is a term that covers the let's say the PR value that a lot of big corporations banks who say to diminish your your footprint, or we all know the green logo of McDonald's, but also Shell talking about how they, there's a boswachter, Hans, basically planting a tree by and making yourself feel less guilty. So basically when this becomes a monetary product of a multinational, and we were just talking about this bank, Rabobank. This was a recent example.
Yeah, it's a while ago, but they
had a beautiful and very long commercial, like a 7-minute long commercial or
Yeah.
something on primetime television.
on growing food together, and then it was assessed by the official reclame authority. I don't know their name. I forgot.
Which is an authority that should say if there's really misinformation in a commercial.
And they assessed it. There is misinformation to the extent that you can't broadcast it anymore. Yeah.
And they were basically bank, so for old farmers loans in the Netherlands, but by now an international, global enterprise, obviously, that make a lot of investments that are the opposite of green and ecological. Do you know more about that?
Yeah, and they also financed. I'm not an expert in this field, but I know that they financed a lot of bio-industry, and now farmers have to scale down their industry, and you could say that they knew that this was coming, and so they didn't did well enough their prudential or their due diligence obligation, and that they should share in the costs of bringing down the amount of animals we have in the Netherlands in the bio-industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I understand it correctly, there is a lot of unrest here in the Netherlands and internationally at the moment about the sustainability of our crops and our livestock industries, obviously. So the farmers are having on one hand a hard time with scaling down on their own time and in their own money, and then there are the political incentives to have them do so. The European court recently had to decide that the new money being invested, it would be that 1/3 of the funds for farming in Europe would have to be invested in green, let's say sustainable farming, and this was again put down by a huge lobby for farmers. So.
Yeah.
If you raise the bar or you lower the bar according to those lobbies, then you can always say that something is green, for instance. So I don't think I'm the most informed to speak about it, but I think we all should pay close attention and keep our leaders accountable.
Yeah. And this is also like the lobby is, of course, so related to greenwashing, and this is also why the Citizens' Assembly is so important.
Yes.
That citizens get to decide.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that is actually one of the good things coming out of recent protests, perhaps.
So politicians get re-elected every 4 years, and climate policy needs to take sort of 100 years or more, but right now it's sort of 100 years into account. Inside. They want to be re-elected. But the sort of benefits of the climate policy will only be visible in 100 years. I mean, this is a bit black and white, but so actually the Citizens' Assembly helps politicians to make choices that they can't make. And it is an old democratic instrument that has been used in Ireland, for instance, to legalize abortion. There's also already a Citizens' Assembly in France for climate policy that has been very successful. And what it is that representative group of the population in the country gets invited, and then they will be educated by experts, or experts will, scientists will explain what the problem is. Then the next phase is a mode of deliberation. So you're going to talk about it.
And maybe develop new policies and hand that over to people in power.
And then the third phase is making the recommendations, and it depends a bit on the
Sure.
Whether
the
they
radicality of the person, or the
but what you often see, or what was actually the case in France, is that the policy recommendations that they made were more radical than the ones that were initially on the table. So these citizens realized, wow, we really need to act on this. And then they suddenly were able to make much more radical decisions than
the politicians would have made. And this is very interesting, because then maybe we would do away with also the monetary power of commerce. For adding a little bit of your knowledge to the conversations about greenwashing. And it leads us directly to the next panel for the viewers at home. Every viewer is at home or elsewhere, because this is the online version of the IMPAKT Festival. Let me briefly introduce to you the panel. It's called Zero Footprint, Zero Change. And obviously, as individuals and consumers, we're constantly asked to make choices to minimize our ecological footprint. But what does making green choices really mean for our planet? The panel will be further introduced by the curators, and we'll switch over the screens to them in just about a minute. But the panel's urgent questions will be entailing around exactly the questions that we were just asking. How can we learn to recognize greenwashing and ensure that our actions lead to structural change? In the panel Zero Footprint, Zero Change, we address these questions with Shivant Jagrou, Alexis Shotwell, and Melle Smets. So I think this is another call for voting with your euros, or voting with your dollars, or whatever currency you might have. Every piece of money that you have spent, you can make a decision and make a little bit of an effort maybe in rethinking how you spend it. One way of spending it, if you have €5 spare, is to get yourself a ticket for the IMPAKT Festival and get all the screening content online. That would be a great addition for yourself, hopefully, if you're interested in the thematics that we're talking about. This was it for me. This is the last panel that I have been introducing decision can make a decision for inviting me. I want to also thank IMPAKT and the team for giving a beautiful landing in this, well, for me, the first of a studio host, making my dream of being a TV host come true after all these years. And I want to thank everybody at home for making time out of your busy schedule to watch this and to share thoughts, hopefully together, around, well, the existential questions of living and connecting on a damaged planet. Thank you. This was it for me, and have a great panel.